We will defend our workers. We will defend our companies. We will defend our country. And we will defend it together. You know, this will hurt us. But through this period, by being together, we will emerge stronger.
A new kind of war is raging, not with tanks or missiles, but with tariffs, supply chains, and diplomatic power plays. It's a full-scale economic conflict between two of the world's closest allies, the United States and Canada. What started as a bold move by former US President Donald Trump has snowballed into a high-stakes trade war that is reshaping the global trading system. Tariffs on auto exports, retaliation on electric vehicles, regulatory red tape at the border, and behind it all, a quiet power struggle over who really controls the future of North America's economy. With every passing month, this battle is growing more complex, with Tesla and major automakers caught in the crossfire and small-town dealerships struggling to survive. It's more than just a trade dispute. It's a fight for economic supremacy in a rapidly shifting world. Let's dive deep into how this economic war began, how it's unfolding, and what it means for the global economy. It started with a chess move. Back in early 2024, Donald Trump returned to political relevance, reigniting his America First policy with a surprise economic strike. He slapped heavy tariffs on Canadian auto exports, citing unfair trade practices and a need to protect American workers. It was a classic Trump tactic, bold, controversial, and designed to shake the status quo. But Canada wasn't caught off guard. Their newly elected Prime Minister, Mark Carney, a former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, was no stranger to global economic warfare. Calm, calculated, and well-connected, Carney struck back not with bluster, but with precision. His government swiftly announced retaliatory tariffs targeting key U.S. exports, electric vehicles, critical battery minerals, and cross-border auto parts. It was a strategic masterstroke. These weren't just random commodities, they were the lifeblood of America's emerging clean energy economy, and Carney knew it.
And today I'm announcing that the Government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach, with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement.
Of all the companies affected, none felt the blow as quickly or as sharply as Tesla. Tesla relies heavily on Canadian lithium, cobalt, and nickel, minerals essential for building the batteries that power their electric vehicles. With Carney's new tariffs and border inspections in place, Tesla found itself in an impossible position: pay inflated prices, scramble to find new suppliers, or slow down production. And it wasn't just Tesla. Ford, General Motors, Stellantis, and Rivian, all of them found themselves caught in the crossfire. American automakers were suddenly dealing with missing parts, shipping delays, and skyrocketing costs. Assembly lines sat idle. Workers were sent home early. The just-in-time supply chain model that once revolutionized the industry was now its biggest weakness. This was a crisis born not in Detroit, but from a diplomatic standoff between Ottawa and Washington. While factories scrambled to manage production delays and supply chain chaos, the real heartbreak was unfolding on the front lines of the auto business, the dealerships. From bustling metro hubs to sleepy rural towns, car dealerships, once humming with activity, began to experience a slowdown that felt more like a full-blown crisis. Vehicles that used to arrive within 3 to 5 days were now taking 3 to 5 weeks. In some extreme cases, customers were told to wait 3 to 6 months for basic models like the Ford Escape or the Chevy Equinox. And when the cars did arrive, they came with higher price tags. Service departments, often the lifeblood of dealership revenue, were overwhelmed. Simple repair jobs turned into logistical nightmares. A broken fuel pump or a faulty sensor that once took a few hours to replace could now take weeks, if the part could be sourced at all. Customers grew impatient, loyalty was tested, and the front desk staff? They bore the brunt of the frustration, often with no answers to give. Salespeople, used to closing deals with confidence, suddenly found themselves empty-handed. Inventory lots that were once packed with options became ghost towns. The few vehicles that did come in were either heavily marked up or sold before they even reached the lot. Dealers had to explain to longtime customers why a base model sedan was suddenly $5,000 more expensive, or why it wasn't available at all. But perhaps the most genius and underhanded part of Canada's strategy was what happened at the border. Rather than resort to illegal tactics or overt aggression, Carney's government opted for something more subtle and more devastating. Border inspections were quietly intensified. Every shipment of auto parts, EV components, or raw materials bound for the US faced increased scrutiny, regulatory slowdowns, and endless paperwork. A shipment that used to cross the border in hours was now taking days. These weren't bans or embargoes, they were bureaucratic landmines, and they were legal. Canada had essentially weaponized compliance. This new strategy caught US companies completely off guard. For years, American manufacturers had relied on Canada's stable, predictable trade protocols. But now, that predictability had turned into an unpredictable quagmire. Meanwhile, Carney launched a parallel PR campaign, portraying Canada as the wronged party, a loyal ally pushed into a corner. With calm press conferences and data-driven messaging, the Canadian government successfully framed the narrative. And it worked. International allies, including the EU and Australia, expressed sympathy with Canada's position. US officials found themselves on the defensive, increasingly isolated from their global partners. The longer this went on, the more it looked like Canada had taken the upper hand. This isn't just a regional disagreement between two neighbors. It's a tremor shaking the very foundations of the global economic system. The ripple effects of the US-Canada trade war are now being felt from Berlin to Beijing. Global investors and multinational corporations are taking a hard look at North American supply chains that were once considered rock solid. Confidence is wavering. Countries and companies that once depended on the seamless flow of goods between the US and Canada are now scrambling to diversify, reroute, and rethink their strategies. The auto industry may be the most visible casualty, but it's far from the only one. Agricultural exports, aerospace deals, medical equipment, rare earth minerals, all of it is suddenly on the table. Cross-border manufacturing agreements are being renegotiated. Long-term contracts are being paused or scrapped altogether. Logistics hubs that once thrived on predictability are now dealing with volatility and risk. For developing nations, this trade war serves as a glaring warning. Economic interdependence, once hailed as a pathway to prosperity, is revealing its fragility. When two of the most interconnected economies in the world clash, even economically, the aftershocks are global. Smaller nations, especially those with limited bargaining power, are watching closely, realizing just how vulnerable they are when the giants collide. Environmental advocates are also raising alarms. The tariffs and retaliatory measures are putting the brakes on the electric vehicle revolution at a time when urgency around climate change is higher than ever. The slowdown in EV production isn't just bad for business. It's a potential setback for global carbon reduction goals. A disruption in battery supply chains today could mean years of delay in meeting sustainability targets. And for the average global consumer, the consequences are immediate and personal. Higher sticker prices, limited model availability, delays on everything from new cars to basic consumer electronics. What used to be a 2-week delivery becomes a 2-month wait. The shelves aren't empty, but they're certainly not full. In short, this isn't just a trade war, it's a pressure test on globalization itself. The economic war between the United States and Canada is more than just a disagreement over car parts. It's a battle of influence, leverage, and leadership in a world that's rapidly changing. Donald Trump's tariffs lit the fuse. Mark Carney's strategic countermeasures turned it into a full-blown economic conflict. Tesla and the entire US auto industry are now the collateral damage in a power play between two economic giants. What's most shocking is how the tables have turned. The US, once the unchallenged economic heavyweight, has been outmaneuvered by its closest neighbor, using tools as simple as tariffs and inspections. And as both nations dig in, the world watches, wondering who will blink first.